Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Carl Moore, and you are watching Becoming Professional. This is, I guess some people describe it as a podcast, but I did not start it thinking that it would be a podcast, but this is about our 10th episode, and our goal is to help students, undergraduates and graduate students specifically, to take their education and their careers to the next level. And today we have some great panelists for you. Our focus is on leadership, and we want to discuss some practical paths to leadership. I have a great set of panelists here, and I'm going to let each one of them introduce themselves. I'm just going to call their names out, and so they can proceed, and then we'll get into some questions and answers. But before that, I want to make one other statement. For those who may have friends or others who wanted to participate today but did not have the opportunity, these Zoom sessions do live on the web, and so they are available on YouTube. And so I'm going to put that link in the chat just so you all can have that. And this presentation will also be there in a couple of days. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let's just go in the order that I see them on my screen. Dr. Lowe, would you like to go first? And just introduce yourself, tell our audience who you are and where you are currently working in your role.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Myra Lowe. I am the Dean of the School of Journalism and Graphic Communication here at Florida A&M University. I like to say I'm still fairly new academic leader here at the university. I've been here about 18 months now.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Dr. Hill.
I'm the one you did.
Okay, hello everyone. Good to see you. Thank you, Dr. Moore, for pulling this panel together. I am currently at Washington Elite University, where I serve as the provost, and I'm also a professor of English and Africana Studies. So happy to be with everyone.
I think I would like to jump in and say I think I've known Dr. Hill the longest out of everybody here, considering she's my baby sister. So it's good to have her here. Okay, Dr. Bryant.
Good afternoon, everyone. Allison Bryant. I'm Chief of Staff to the President at Howard University. I'm also Vice President of Corporate Relations. I've been at Howard for 14 years. I'm also a Professor of Information Systems here in the Business School. So thanks for having us today.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. I knew Dr. Bryant when she was still a student, so we go back a little ways too. And the same for our final panelists, last but definitely not least, Dr. Gordon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Renee Gordon. I am the STEM Program Director here at Tallahassee Community College. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Gordon has to leave a bit early, and so it's great that she's here. Also, we have to have a STEM person always whenever we do anything here in Becoming Professional. Okay, so the first question I have for you all is, where did your path to leadership, where did it diverge from your faculty role? And any of you can take that. And for those of you who are in the audience, if you have a question, you can place it in the chat and I'll try to relay it, or you can raise your hand, either way. But any panelists want to take that first question?
I'll jump in. I would say my academic journey really started about 20 years ago as an adjunct professor while I was working as a journalist at a newspaper in New York. But I could say I was groomed for what I think leadership about in the academy, at least about 6 years ago in 2017, when I was appointed to be the director of the Innovation News Center and the assistant dean, then the assistant dean for student experiences at the University of Florida, School of Journalism and Communications in Gainesville. It was in these roles that I really got the opportunity to engage with faculty, staff, students, administrators on curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular activity. So that's where that started.
Good, okay. Anybody else?
Sure, I'm happy to jump in. My first tenure track appointment was at the University of Iowa as an English professor and professor of African American Studies. And I started to take on more service opportunities as I got close to being tenured. And then after I received tenure, I started serving as the Director of Undergraduate Studies in English. And at the University of Iowa, we have very large English programs. So we had about 1,000 English majors. So I enjoyed doing that work and then ended up being asked to serve on a presidential search. And that sort of began my movement toward other kinds of administrative roles. When we hired the new president, he came and invited me to serve as senior associate to the president. And so I started serving in that role while I still maintained some of my teaching and research responsibilities. And then our chief diversity officer left. And so I served as interim CDO. And that role really gave me a chance to work with a large group of staff professionals. I had not done that. I'd really been working mostly with faculty. And of course, also continued working with students. And so that I think gave me a new view of what it would look like to occupy a position in academic leadership.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Bryant?
So around the time that I came up for tenure, we have a number of programs in the School of Business, one of which is our Executive Leadership Honors Program, as well as something that we call 21st Century Advantage Program. And that's a program for all of our freshmen. They're housed in an office called Special Programs. And so the person who was running that office was transitioning. And so I had been as a student in the honors program and obviously in the freshman program as well. So I had some sense and understanding of what the programs look like, what it meant for the student experience. And so I was given the opportunity to lead that program for about a year. And so I did it because, one, I wanted to pitch in and help, but I wanted to make sure there was continuity in the office, but found it a really interesting way to learn more about the sort of administrative side of the business school, as well as how it interacted with other schools and colleges. So that was my entryway.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. Dr. Gordon?
For mine, so I am a graduate of the FAMU-FSU College of Engineering. And so my first job, once I got my graduate degree, was actually adjuncting at the College of Engineering in statics and mechanics. And then I started my role here at Tallahassee Community College as a STEM program director, and I've been here ever since. And what really attracted me to this position that I'm currently in is the fact that it's like a bridge between teaching and instructing as well as admin. So of course, I've done the whole mechanical engineering journey and learned a lot of very rigorous coursework and things like that. But as far as the admin side, things to do with budgets and a lot of logistics, running the program, dealing with, having people that are that I manage on my staff, dealing with that, writing grants, managing grants, multiple grants, different deliverables. I've been able to beef up and strengthen those muscles where I didn't have that prior to this role.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Gordon, that brings up an important point I want to focus on. I remember a couple of times when I was an intern at various corporations, there was this thing that at least the employees used to discuss, that the management were excellent technical people, right? So they had these great skills, whether it was in chemistry or engineering, but they had been promoted into leadership where they were leading people, as you were just discussing. And so one thing I'd like to kind of ask you guys is kind of that same transition that you seem to have successfully made from being great at research and doing your scholarly things to now being in leadership. Were there any courses, or was there an MBA? What prepared you for leading people and not just being focused on your scholarship that you were in the beginning of your career?
I'll jump in. I would say as an academic service work, actually serving on different committees, having an opportunity to see the institution in different ways. Oftentimes we have a very narrow focus as a faculty member. For me, I'm working on my book, I'm teaching my classes. But when I started taking on different service roles, like I served on the undergraduate education policy and curriculum committee. So now I'm not just thinking about curriculum in the English department, but I'm hearing about, the ways we need to revise curriculum across all of arts and sciences. Then I served on our strategic planning process for the entire university. And I remember I was tasked with writing the visionary statement. So then I'm thinking about the med school. I'm thinking about, all the things that go into a large university in terms of our identity. Those roles were crucial. And as I stepped into the role of the Chief Diversity Officer, and I think this goes to what Dr. Gordon was just saying, then you're overseeing staff and you're thinking about working with people in different capacities. And I always joke and say a lot of folks who find themselves in academic leadership, it's because they can work well with people. And they found that, by working on committees and finding a kind of passion for improving in the institution through that service work.
Good point, good point. Anybody else want to chime in on that question?
So for me, after working in the Office of Special Programs, I became the department chair for Information Systems and Supply Chain Management. I had a friend of mine who was in marketing, and she became the chair the year before I did. And so in thinking about my career and wanting to hopefully someday transition into that role, I did sort of some informal shadowing with her and watching how she managed her meetings, what her interaction was and communication was like with her faculty members, how engaged she was, how she handled conflict and problems. And so I thought to myself that even if I didn't necessarily take the role, I could learn something by sort of watching how she, maneuvered. And so I took that as a really important learning opportunity for me as I transitioned into that role. So I think I would echo the importance of finding someone that if there would allow you to shadow or spend some days with in a role that you think is important, it would be useful.
That's great. Wow, Dr. Bryant, that makes me think about mentoring. I didn't really put a question in regarding that. I wasn't thinking about that, but that is very important. Does any of the other panelists want to make a statement regarding mentors or maybe someone you've had through this journey into leadership that really helped you see some things that you might not otherwise have noticed?
I thank you, Dr. Bryan, because that was one of the things that I would want to mention: mentorship, learning by observing, right, others in these positions, what to do and what not to do, right? And that's just as valuable. But the mentorship piece and learning by trial and error, leadership is really about constant learning, and whether you're reading or going to trainings or observing, you're always, I believe, learning as a leader. The mentorship piece, I think, is critical for those of us who are either aspire to be leaders or are leaders. My mentor when I was at the University of Florida was the dean of the School of Journalism and Graphic and Communications. And so she was able to impart in me things that I should be thinking about. She even encouraged me to think about becoming a dean way before I even thought about that being a position that I should aspire to. And so just kind of really having those conversations with her about what the role entailed, what are the things I should be doing, how could I prepare for the role. And so all of that, finding someone who can pour into you as you aspire to move higher in higher ed or wherever you decide that you might want to go.
Thank you so much. Anybody else?
I would agree with all of these lovely ladies. In addition to that, definitely trial and error, right? But I think when you do have those errors, you try to, seek out different professional development opportunities that will help you in those areas. A lot of things that have helped me have been like maybe character assessments, personality assessments, and having group discussions with others who are in leadership roles, and just sharing your experiences. This happened, even if you want to do it under the guise of, this happened to a colleague of mine, and sharing your stories. I think sharing experiences and really talking things through and saying, hey, I could have handled this better, or, this person could have handled the situation better, really helps us all grow and become better leaders.
That's good. It's like falling forward, right? So we shouldn't pretend like we have it all together, right? We do need somebody to kind of bounce things off of, and some of the issues, which makes me think of the challenges, right? So in terms of, let's say, the most exciting, there might be many exciting things that you guys do on your jobs, but talk to us about what you consider the most exciting aspect of your job, or and the most challenging aspect of it. Everybody's thinking.
Dr. Lowe, I think you're muted.
Sorry. I was gonna say, because there are a lot of challenges and there are a lot of joys with these jobs, right? And so I think for me, what I enjoy the most about being the dean is I enjoy paving the pathways for student success. Really creating opportunities for students to activate their goals, getting them ready for the workforce. It's probably one of the best things that I get to do on a day-to-day basis is watch the light bulb go off, or when they come to me talking about they landed the job, those are the things that really inspire me, and probably the highlight of my academic year is watching them cross that stage, right? Because that sense of accomplishment that we see and sense, it really gives me professional and personal joy. Balancing that with the challenges, I would say just the juggling of a great number of pressing priorities, right, that are competing oftentimes, and trying to figure out where to put my attention now, right? So I think for me, because the standard is high here, and we want to espouse the excellence with caring mantra, just me as the dean wanting to live up to that expectation, and doing the duties that come along with the job well. So just kind of balancing those priorities, I think, is a challenge.
Right. Okay. Anyone else a great joy, a great exciting aspect of your work, Dr. Gordon?
I guess to echo Dr. Lowe, really developing the people that I'm essentially responsible for, I guess, in teaching and just higher ed, I think education overall. You don't always see the immediate growth or the immediate impact that you make, right? So sometimes you're like, man, is this going well? But those moments like graduation, or for me, when some of my students complete undergraduate research and do a presentation or a poster, session or something like that, those moments are when you're like, okay, it's working, things are going well. And, it does make you excited and happy and joyful, because it's, at least for me, this is definitely a passion. I do care about people who essentially are whatever behind me, as far as their journey towards whatever their goal is, and any way that I can help them really does, bring me satisfaction. So that's the joy part for me. Some of the challenges, so I manage about 6 or 7 grants totaling like somewhere like $1.5 million. So juggling those, all of the programming, all of the reports and things like that, I would say that is a bit of a challenge at times. But again, through speaking with other leaders and really, seeing how to effectively lead and complete things and be like I said, effective. I've learned to delegate. That is one skill that I did not have down. I would really do a lot by myself, but I've learned to delegate to really make that challenge less challenging.
Yeah. It seems very interesting that we, as faculty, at one point that you really get a lot of joy from your students. And then, but you're good at what you do, and now you start moving up, right, into a leadership role, and some of those joys have to kind of morph, right? So you're still working with people, right? You still get to see the benefit of growth, but maybe not so much the immediate, student support or excitement when they see those good grades, right? So there's new things, new exciting areas. What about you, Dr. Hill?
That's what you were just saying is so true. One of the things I don't think I recognized when I moved into academic leadership is that you do move away sometimes from the immediate work with students, which always gave me the greatest joy. I just feel like the classroom is the most magical place. So I'm at WNL, which is a small, highly ranked liberal arts school, it's PWI, it's in the South. I came here to serve as the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, and after doing that for 3 years, moved into the role of Provost. And as even the Dean, I felt closer sometimes to the faculty in terms of the day-to-day work. And as Provost, I'm a little even further removed. But what I really love, and I don't know if I anticipated loving it so much, is the creativity I get to have in terms of directing the institutional mission and working very closely with the president, but for me, really focused on the academic experience for our faculty, our staff, and our students. And that has been really rewarding. So for instance, I was able to create a new academic center, which is called the Delaney Center and is focused on the study of Southern race relations and culture and politics. And that's allowing us to recruit diverse faculty, to recruit postdocs, to change our curriculums that we're talking about issues of race in the South. Fun things like this year, we created something called Slices of Research, where we brought all of the newly tenured and promoted to full professor faculty members to a local pizza place. And we had them do presentations in the Pecha Kucha. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. It's kind of quick-paced PowerPoint presentation that people are doing all over the world. But we had people think up their own hype songs and share them with us. They gave these presentations. We had pizza, and there was a beer wall. And they also had axe throwing. So people question, are you going to have people drinking beer and throwing axes and sharing their research? But it was great. It was a great community builder. So I love that. And the last thing I'll say that I've really enjoyed in this position is telling our story of our student success and our faculty success to a range of audiences. So I talk a lot to parents and to alumni, and I travel and meet people who love our institution all over the country. And I love that. Sometimes they're mad, and that gets to the challenging part. Everything's not always great, but in general, you have a really good story to tell. And I think this goes to what people were saying before. I get to have a sort of larger stage to celebrate our students' triumphs, as well as our faculty and staff, all they're doing. But that can be the challenging part too, is there are more people who might be unhappy with decisions that you make or things that you're not able to do. If the salary pool isn't what people want it to be, or any number of things. So the good comes with the challenges as well.
Hear that. Dr. Bryant, in terms of your position, corporate relations, I'm thinking that a lot of maybe students, grad students, undergraduates don't really know much about that position. So in terms of your position, could you tell us a little bit about what you do and maybe what some of the challenges or exciting aspects of that would be?
No, thanks for that question. Actually, it's a fairly new office. Many universities have development sort of leadership around donations and scholarships and things like this. Our office was actually created to consider how we engage with our corporate partners as well as our community partners to figure out how to be inclusive of all of our different schools and colleges. A trend that you all may see on different campuses is that people are always interested in recruiting business majors or engineers or English or social work or something like that. But what our office seeks to do is to also bring a highlight to education, to medicine, to law, and to think about how we can be interdisciplinary in our efforts to create programming for students that will, round out their academic experience. So obviously internships and full-time opportunities, but helping our corporate partners to be creative and to think about new ways to engage. And so what we do is spend a lot of time understanding our students, talking with them, seeking out what gaps in knowledge or information they might have, and to create events and sponsorship that will help them to move to the next level. So that part is interesting because it's sort of being on the ground with creating a structure that we hope will be long lasting. It also supports things like student affairs, development, and a number of our other constituents on campus. Some of the challenges, though, is that there's a lot of work to do. Howard is a HBCU. We have a lot of attention right now, which we're very thankful for. But being able to field all of that interest and find, solutions to all of the world's problems becomes a little challenging from time to time. But when we get someone on campus that really cares about the mission, that really cares about the students, there's no better feeling, right? So we make opportunities available that may not have been given prior to our interaction with these organizations, and really getting them to do things that are nuanced or different, I think is also exciting as well. So it changes daily. So
That's good. I bet. Howard University, not just any HBCU, right? We're talking about the Mecca. So that's good. That's right. We know that. Okay. Now, Dr. Bryant did bring up just the challenge of just so much to do, right? And I know you all are tremendously busy. I'm just thrilled that you're even able to be here today. But talk to us a little bit about how do you balance? How do you end up with a good work-life balance in these roles?
Again, I think a big component for me is to delegate the things that do not need you specifically to do. That's why you have your helpers, your staff, and even other colleagues, depending on whatever project you're working on. So definitely delegating, that'll assist you with your kind of work-life balance.
That's right, delegation. Anybody else?
I would say you have to choose. Balance is probably maybe not the correct word, but there are going to be some things that you say, I'm not going to negotiate on. It might be going to your kid's soccer game. It might be your, 3 times a week I go to the gym. It might be like, I need to read for 20 minutes, something that's non-academic before bed. Whatever that routine is, you're going to have to decide that that's important to you and prioritize that, because no one will do it for you. You can read emails till 4 o'clock in the morning. You can write papers till 4 o'clock in the morning. You can answer phone calls. You can catch up on strategy or what's happening in the news 24/7 if you allow yourself to. So the best type of work-life balance is when you decide what's important. And it's not always an easy decision, and it may change from time to time, but you're going to also have to acknowledge that sometimes every single thing won't get done, but you've prioritized the things that are important to keep you sustained as that leader, as that, whatever your role is. It could be best friend, wife, mother, husband, uncle, whatever is important to you, you have to make some decisions.
I hear that. Prioritization and delegation. Anybody else? I have 2 people left.
I would echo what Dr. Bryant had said, the intentionality behind it. To be honest, I have struggled with this throughout my entire career of trying to balance life and work, because there's so much work to do. And because we enjoy what we do, it could easily overtake, the personal. So just being intentional, right, about what you're allotting your time to. And it really isn't, we talk about self-care a lot, but it really is critical that we make time to take care of ourselves, replenish our bodies, our minds, our souls. And so for me, just kind of figuring out how to distress. I try to use the weekends as much as I possibly can to just bring it down, try to unplug, go for a walk, read a book that's not related to work, or listen to music, or binge watch on something, get a massage or whatever, have some ice cream, but whatever, those little things can really make a difference. But the intentionality, I think, is critical to sustain yourself and to be able to then sustain and work to your best for your organization.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it changes as you get older, as your positions change. But I think it's really important to know your values when you go in, which may not be the values of your peers. So for me, when my kids were young, you spend a lot of time prioritizing them and deciding where work has to stop. Remaining active in your church. For me, that was kept me stabilized, was a foundation that no matter what's going on, people will email you all day from the moment you open your eyes on Sunday, and I will, say, hey, I actually can't meet Sunday morning. That is my time with my family. But then it's also the simple things. For me, Netflix on Friday, even if I don't get to it until 11 p.m., I'm going to have that movie and my pizza and my popcorn, because that kind of routine, it's a simple thing, but it's something I look forward to. And then I learn from those around me. One thing I'm learning is that I need more vacation time, intentional, not, I love visiting my family and spending time with my family. But for a long time, I didn't actually take other kinds of vacations. And now I realize I actually need a time to unplug and feel like I'm not responsible for anything. And this, I think, goes to some things we said earlier, like telling my assistants also, like this week, I'm actually, unless it's an emergency, I'm not going to be responsive, because the first time I took a vacation as dean, I found myself doing email on the beach, and that's not ideal.
Understood, understood. Let me pause and ask, is there anyone in the audience who has a question that they would like to either come in and ask?
Something, and we're going to also generalize the way we think about this is by.
All right. Anybody with a question, they can go ahead and ask now, or you can place it in the chat. Okay. Don't want to have too much dead air. Usually whenever I ask a question in class, I always wait for 10 seconds. And then invariably at 9 seconds, somebody will say something. But I have another question for you guys, if there's none from the audience. Is there something that, since you've been in leadership, that just surprised you about it? Something that you weren't expecting from when you were in your previous position? It may not be. I don't know.
I mean, I will jump in to say, not necessarily in this role, but just leadership in general. Dr. Moore, is, there is a saying that, or I once read that a boss, let me get it right. A boss leads for living, a leader lives to lead, right? And so, for me, over time, I learned about myself that surprisingly that I love to lead, like to being a leader. Because as a young woman, that wasn't something that even came to mind, right? That you were going to aspire to be a leader. Like, what is that to be, And so I realized that I enjoy the capacity to help others, to help serve others. And again, as I said earlier, kind of helping them achieve their dreams and their goals. Leadership is really about helping others succeed. So for me, the surprising thing was I enjoy doing this. And, I love to make things happen. I like the problem solving aspects of the job. And most of all, I really enjoy helping others succeed. So
Excellent.
that was a revelation that happened over time.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Anyone else want to chime?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I completely agree with that. I think people often associate leadership with power. And so much of what we do is serve others. You sit around thinking about what can I do to improve the lives of everyone at this institution, faculty, students. I mean, that's what you're brainstorming. That's what you're approaching each day as problems come your way. And I find a real satisfaction in that. I think as Dean Lowe was saying, that is fulfilling in a way that I didn't anticipate. The classroom working with students was always so fulfilling to me, but I didn't anticipate how much I would enjoy solving institutional problems and improving the lives of people. The other thing, and I'll say this, we're all women. I often thought as a faculty member, it was so much about, getting my work published in the best presses and getting invited here and there. And I sometimes downplayed other qualities that I think have served me really well as a leader. I'm at a small institution, it's very high touch. And even at the University of Iowa, I found building relationships, being a person who likes people and actually will, like, I really enjoy welcoming my new faculty and getting to know them and figuring out, sharing a hairdresser with them, but also the big things, like actually forming those relationships. Leading is a lot easier when you enjoy that part of it. And I kind of downplayed that early on in my career. And now I realize, that's a strength, and it's a strength that you sort of discover as you're going down the path of leadership.
Great. That's great. That's great. We're getting some great little nuggets here. That's good. Dr. Bryant, do you have anything there?
I think what I realized is that you have to reset every day. There's so many things that maybe you think or you've seen before, and good things and bad, that I think a fresh approach to each day allows you to look at the work that you're doing, the impact that you're having with really fresh eyes. And it's something that I think as a faculty member, I didn't spend a lot of time on because students always reset me. It was a different class, it was a different topic, it was a new day. But I think carrying that same kind of perspective into your administrative work is helpful, because you could have, yesterday something could have caught on fire. It's not going to catch on fire tomorrow, likely, if you did your job. Or yesterday may be very exciting. I mean, we might have, walked in and met a president, of another country, but then that next day you get back to the work that has to be done and moving the needle forward. So I think just having a perspective where you can wash over your good and bad experiences so that you can focus on getting what you need to get done is really important. And I don't think I anticipated that.
Okay. What about you guys in terms of your scholarship? You are academics. Some, or at least from what I've seen, some people really continue to have an academic pursuit once they enter into leadership, but then some people do not. What do you guys think? Is that something that's been important to you? Have you been able to continue to do that? Or are you just completely onto different things at this point? Dr. Hill?
So I definitely am not publishing at the rate that I was as a faculty member. And I think I had to recognize that wasn't going to happen, at least for me, that I'm not able to put the kind of, it really is thought time and research time into producing that kind of research. But I do research in different ways. I still try to attend conferences, like I'm attending a conference in an organization I continue to be very active in, a literary conference in May. Right now I'm working on a lecture on a novel. We do lifelong learning here at WNL. And so that is actually wonderful. Like, I love to write on literature. That's my field. And so although I'm not able to churn out an article for the best journal right now, I take real pride in being able to continue that the sort of work of the mind. But if I'm being honest, no, I'm not continuing it. But I am hoping to write another book, I will say. But if these other ladies can share any tips in terms of using their time so they can still churn out research at the same rate, then I'm all ears.
Excellent. Dr. Lowe, could you offer advice on that?
I'm not sure I can help you on that, because the jobs are all consuming, right? But I think if we can figure out how to incorporate it somehow in the role, that would make it much easier. So for me, I'm looking for opportunities to maybe co-author with someone or someone's to help ease that burden of me doing it, right, as a solo author. So that's one idea. I have a paper that is coming out, but it was co-authored with the 3 others. And so we each, kind of came together on that. So that might be a way, but it really is difficult to be a full-time administrator and then pursue the scholarship. I get joy of supporting other scholars, right, and other scholarship. And so that's my way of as Dr. Hill, going to conferences and understanding what is being published and applauding that. But right now, finding time to make it work is a challenge.
Okay. I was just so excited that we were able to put together a panel of 4 I don't want to say up and coming, but for Black women in academic leadership to talk to us about some of those practical paths to leadership. But as Black women in leadership, is there something that you can say to us about diversity or inclusion in terms of that, something that maybe similar students should maybe think about or consider as they move forward?
What I can say is we are in the midst of a presidential search right now. So our current president has been in the role for approximately 10 years, and he'll be transitioning out sometime later this year. Diversity inclusion is a buzzword in a lot of places, but I feel like the trend is moving towards more actionable work around diversity. If you have seen the most recent presidential hirings, many of them are women. The new president of Harvard is an African-American woman. So I think that, one of the good things that we're seeing in terms of the onus and highlight of women who are doing great work is that they're getting opportunities. And they're not getting opportunities because they're women, they're getting opportunities because they work hard and they've demonstrated that they deserve to be in these roles. So I would encourage everyone who's interested, whether it be from a minority background or if you're a woman or you fall into any other category that you feel like has been underrepresented, this is your moment, right? This is an opportunity to be proud in the work that you do and to find people who are going to say your name in rooms that you're not in. So finding mentors, sponsors, and champions are the best possible thing you can do. And you do that often by, demonstrating you have a good work ethic and that you're willing to be committed to a mission. So I think that that's what I've seen most recently, and it's really encouraging for me.
Good point. Dr. Beal?
Yeah, I would echo everything Dr. Bryant just said. Since I've spent my leadership time, I'm also a Howard grad, I have to say, I'm a Bison. But my leadership roles have been at PWIs and starting at the University of Iowa. What I would say is if you're interested in this, it is really satisfying, inspiring, I think a gift to get to bring your talent to bear and to offer opportunities to other people of color. That was what really, I think kept me in leadership, because I was sort of straddling, would I move into academic leadership or would I stay in the faculty? And my first roles at the University of Iowa. And it was having a seat at the table and being one of the only people of color, one of the few women at the table, but being able to think alongside the president at the University of Iowa, who I think of as a wonderful mentor. He gave me incredible opportunities when I had not had a lot of experience in academic leadership, been able to shape programs that allowed us to recruit more faculty of color, think about how we could support our students. Here at WNL, we've increased during my tenure of 5 years here, our underrepresented faculty by 122%. And that's, bringing in a number of different programs where we are hiring diverse postdocs, where we are putting resources behind really, in many ways, not just recruiting faculty of color, but supporting them. And then thinking up, creating, new academic opportunities like the Delaney Center. Having a chance to do that has been amazing. And I would just completely agree with what Dr. Bryant said. This is a wonderful moment, but for me, it's, what do you do when you get into these spaces? When I moved out of the role of being dean here at WNL, I was really privileged to hire a Black woman into the role of dean. And so just that opportunity to continue to build is something that is really, I find great satisfaction in.
Oh, that's good. And I know that's not easy. I remember a search that we had for a position in robotics. We had, I think, 120 applicants, and we had no women. And I think we had one underrepresented person. And our dean basically sent us back to do the search again because he wanted a more diverse group of applicants. Dr. Lowe, can you add anything related to this conversation?
I would say that, thinking about your perspective really matters at this level. When I was at the University of Florida, I was the first woman of color and a Black woman, Black academic to be on the leadership team. And being in the room, having a seat at the table, as Dr. Hill says, and bringing perspectives that maybe others had not thought of when it came to decision-making, or when it came to curriculum, or when it came to how to recruit or retain faculty of color, students of color, all that came to bear through that position. So, you know, your perspective matters, your presence matters, and you can bring a whole lot to the conversation and move the needle just by being there. So, you know, that is the critical part of diversity, equity, inclusion. I know it can be a buzzword or a bad word depending on what state you're in, but it really is a critical piece to the puzzle as we look at diversity across all of what it means, right? Geography, gender, age, that experience, that diverse experience adds a richness to the academic enterprise.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, I have one final prepared question for you all. You know, most of our audience is made up of graduate students and some undergraduates also. If you can get down to one piece, what would be one piece of advice you would give to a student who's looking forward to graduating and perhaps considering leadership? I know you guys speak to students all the time.
I think I'll go back to something I said earlier. You know, leadership is not about a title. It really is about serving and elevating others, right? So if that is something that you're passionate about, you're comfortable being responsible for others, because right at the end of the day, you're the one, right, that gets the call or having to answer the email. So really being comfortable and understanding your responsibility for others in the role. But I think for me, just kind of focusing on the positive impact that you can have on a team, on a unit, or an organization, and using your gifts to transform spaces and places, right? And so I think that to me is what I would say to students is this is really an opportunity for you to have enormous impact on a place that will have enormous impact on others.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Dr. Bryant?
So I would say if leadership is something that you're interested in, seek out people and resources, because I think that leadership can be taught. I think you have to have the will and the interest and the desire to make change. And then the other things can be learned. How to manage people, having an interest in their development in their spaces is really key, but also knowing yourself, right? So if you know that if somebody asks you too many questions in a row that you can't handle it, then you know that might be an area of improvement for you. You might think that, you know, you're great with, you know, communications, but you might need some help in interpersonal. There are resources. So the nice thing about leadership is that the sort of personal piece is what you can have the desire to do, and all the other stuff. There are lots of resources and people who can help you along the way, and just, you know, being sort of forthcoming about your areas of improvement, because I certainly can't do everything well. And so I know when I need to ask questions or ask for help.
Great, thank you. Dr. Hill?
I completely agree with everything that's been said. I would add in terms of academic leadership in particular, but I think this is applicable to all areas. Don't try to skip steps. I think I'm so glad I had the experience of, you know, building my repertoire in terms of the courses I taught, of working at a departmental level, of then working at an institutional level. Like sometimes I meet young people and they want to go straight to the top. Each of those steps, I learned a lot, and it, I think, has made me a more effective leader because I understand how institutions work. I think you discover your own gifts, and this is, I think, what Dr. Bryant was getting at. You understand your strengths. And all of those are so necessary. But it's also, I think, figuring out what you enjoy and placing importance on that, and understanding that, nothing replaces, and this is my final, I think, piece of advice, nothing replaces a strong work ethic. I don't care if you have certain gifts in certain areas or certain things come really easy to you. In these jobs, once you get to a certain level of leadership, it just takes time, and it takes a willingness to put the time in to do things well. Excellence really matters to you, but also when you are managing people, they see you. I think, especially if you go to a new institution, I can't tell you how many people will come up to me and say, I see your light on really late, early in the morning and late in the evening. And that actually buys you credibility when people know that you're not asking them to do anything you're not willing to do yourself. And as a leader in any area, that matters. So I would say, enjoy the path, enjoy the journey. It's not just where you land, it's how you get there. And then be willing to lean in and work really hard, because, it's impossible to do these jobs well without putting in the time.
Put in the time. I hear that. That's great. That's a great thing to end on, at least from my questions. And I don't see any questions in the chat. Does anyone who is listening, anyone in the audience, have a question for one of our panelists or for all of the panelists? Okay, going once, going twice. Well, thank you, panelists, so much. Thank you for your time. I know that you all are busy, and taking the time out to sit with us for an hour and discuss leadership was very helpful. I really appreciate it. And for all of you, again, this recording will be available on YouTube. And so just search for Becoming Professional, Florida A&M, and you can find it. Thank you very much, panelists. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Moore.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.